Cleopatra 1963 is an epic historical drama film directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz and produced by 20th Century Fox. It's based on the life of the famous Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra VII, and her complex relationships with the Roman leaders Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. The film is notable for its lavish production values, extravagant costumes, and dramatic performances. Plot: the film chronicles Cleopatra's rise to power and her complicated love affairs with two of Rome's most powerful men, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. The story begins with Cleopatra's struggle to secure her throne against her brother, Ptolemy XIII. She eventually aligns herself with Julius Caesar, who helps her defeat her brother and solidify her rule. After Caesar's assassination, Cleopatra forms an alliance with Mark Antony, which causes political tension between Rome and Egypt. The movie explores their passionate love affair, Antony's political and military struggles, and the eventual downfall of the Egyptian kingdom following their defeat by Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. Cast: Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra, Richard Burton as Mark Antony, Rex Harrison as Julius Caesar, Roddy McDowall as Octavian, Martin Landau as Rufio.
Elizabeth Taylor became the first actress to receive $1 million for a single film, which at the time was unheard of. Elizabeth Taylor wore over 65 different costumes throughout the movie, and many of them were designed by famous costume designer Irene Sharaff. One of the most famous outfits she wore was a lavish gold gown for the film's grand entrance scene, which weighed around 22 pounds and was encrusted with jewels. Taylor's look became iconic, and she's still considered one of the most glamorous actresses to ever take on the role of Cleopatra. The film's production is often remembered for the off-screen romance between Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. The two were already married to other people when they began an affair during the filming. Their chemistry on-screen translated into a real-life romance, leading to 2 marriages and divorces over the course of their relationship. The affair sparked a media frenzy, with tabloids referring to them as the most famous couple in the world. The film went through a series of reshoots and director changes. Originally, the film was directed by Ruben Mamoulian, but due to various issues, he was replaced by Joseph L. Mankiewicz, who took over the direction in the middle of production. There were also script rewrites and a major reshaping of the narrative. By the time they wrapped up, the film had already taken more than a year to make.
While filming in Italy, Elizabeth Taylor contracted a near-fatal illness, a bad case of pneumonia that caused her to be bedridden for months. She was even in critical condition at one point. Despite the setback, she managed to return to the set and complete her scenes after a long recovery period, which only added to the film's delays. Although the film was expensive and controversial, it ended up being a box office hit, grossing over $57 million in the US, making it one of the highest-grossing films of 1963. However, despite this success, the film didn't recoup its massive production cost for a number of years, causing Fox to suffer a financial strain. Cleopatra was part of the wave of grand historical epics in Hollywood during the 1960s. Films like Ben-Hur 1959, Spartacus 1960, and Lawrence of Arabia 1962, had set the stage for a love of grand spectacle, and Cleopatra took that concept to the next level. Though the movie was panned in some quarters for its slow pacing and narrative issues, it set the bar for the scale and grandeur of future epics.
The extravagant sets, the scale of the production, and the sheer spectacle of Cleopatra set a new standard for cinematic epics. Even though it received mixed reviews, the film has influenced future generations of filmmakers who sought to recreate similar grandeur, from Gladiator 2000 to Troy 2004.
The film had an initial budget of about $5 million. However, as production progressed, the costs skyrocketed. Due to multiple reshoots, script rewrites, and extensive delays, the final cost ballooned to around $44 million. This figure was staggering for the time and made Cleopatra the most expensive film ever made at that point in history. Despite its astronomical cost, Cleopatra went on to become a box office success, but only after a long and difficult road. The film was released in 1963 and grossed about $57.8 million in the United States, which was substantial at the time. However, because of its enormous production cost, it didn't immediately turn a profit. It took years for the film to break even. and it wasn't until the international market, as well as a re-release in 1972, that the film finally turned a profit for 20th Century Fox. By the early 1970s, Cleopatra had grossed about $100 million worldwide, and it has since become one of the highest-grossing films of the 1960s.
Positive reviews. Cinematographers and set designers were lauded for their stunning work on the film's enormous sets and intricate costumes. The grandeur of Cleopatra's palace, the battles, and the sheer scale of the production were frequently highlighted as a visual marvel. Elizabeth Taylor, who became synonymous with her portrayal of Cleopatra, received mostly positive reviews for her magnetic screen presence. She was praised for embodying the role's elegance and regality, even though the script's limitations made her character somewhat one-dimensional. Richard Burton, playing Mark Antony, also received acclaim for his passionate performance, though his chemistry with Taylor was often viewed as both an asset and a point of critique, given their real-life romance. Their on-screen relationship, full of drama and passion, became one of the film's defining features, often overshadowing the actual plot. Rex Harrison's portrayal of Julius Caesar was appreciated for his dignity and authority. His performance was more restrained but served the role well. Negative reviews. One of the most common criticisms was the film's slow pace and its excessive length. The film runs over 4 hours, and many critics felt that it dragged on, with certain scenes feeling tedious and repetitive. The grand spectacle at the beginning would eventually give way to long, drawn-out dialogues and political intrigue that seemed to lose focus. While the movie took significant liberties with historical facts, which wasn't uncommon for epic films of the era, this didn't sit well with everyone. Some historians and critics felt the film distorted key events to serve melodramatic purposes rather than providing an accurate portrayal of Cleopatra's reign. The film's emphasis on Cleopatra's relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony was viewed as reducing her to little more than a lover, undermining her historical significance as a ruler, strategist, and politician. The Guardian criticized the film's historical revisions, noting that while the spectacle was impressive, the film made Cleopatra more of a passive figure in the face of two larger-than-life men. The dialogue was another point of criticism. Some found it to be overly stilted and dramatic, often heavy-handed in its presentation of political intrigue. While the performances of Taylor and Burton helped elevate the material, the script itself was often considered a weak point. Critics felt that much of the character development was lost due to the film's focus on spectacle and opulence, which detracted from the emotional weight of the drama. While the film's lavishness was certainly a selling point, some critics felt that it was overindulgent. The sheer excess of the production, from the costumes to the sets, often overshadowed the core drama of the film. This was seen as a reflection of Hollywood's tendency at the time to prioritize spectacle over substance, which led to some reviewers thinking it was more about showing off wealth than telling a compelling story.